Welcome and thank you for coming to today's masterclass. Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming meta changes on patch 14.1. So that is the upcoming patch that will be dropping January 10th, and this will be the patch that the KDA players will be playing for week 2, so day 3 and day 4. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you have any big questions, please leave them at the end, but any questions throughout the lesson, feel free to unmute your mic and ask on the spot. I'll be happy to answer it. Okay, so here's the list of the changes that I'll be talking about today. The first one, the biggest one, is going to be open forwarding. So if you have been playing TFT in the past, I guess it only started getting popular after the Vegas Open, so maybe like 2-3 weeks. Open forwarding is a big problem, and I'll talk about how Riot Games or the dev team addressed it and what to do instead. Streaking, there's big streaking changes, changes to the Heartsteel Trait, headliners in general. There's a lot of item changes, and then I'll wrap everything up in a final note. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you just want to see the summary, you feel free to skip to the end and check it out there. Okay, so let's get into it. Patch 14.1, meta changes. This will be our thumbnail. Open forwarding. This 50-50 is gone. We are no longer flipping a coin hoping that we don't travel. And yeah, so here's how Riot addressed it. Combat ties. So this is essentially if two players open forts, but also I guess let's tie in any other way, like either with like training dummies, etc. If there is a tie, then both players will take damage as if it were a loss. So it's very little. It's like one player damage, especially on stage 2. But then the major thing that they've now implemented is each player's streak will be reset to 0. So it will no longer count as a loss if you both lose. And if, well, there is no more like one player wins, one player loses in an open fort situation. Now it's just both players will take damage as if it were a loss, and then both streaks are set to 0. So there's no more lose streak, there's no more win streak, it's just 0. So you might have already guessed that this instantly kills your econ. You no longer have any streak gold, and it'll take, a little spoiler onto the next slide, another 3 rounds before you actually get any streak gold. So you might be thinking, oh, what happened to 2 streak? We'll talk about that in the next slide, a little spoiler. So yes, essentially, players will now like open for a lot rarer. It really discourages open forwarding, and it's actually better to play 1 unit and win than reset your streak to 0. So let's say that there's another open forwarder in your lobby. This might be the case. It becomes kind of a game of chicken where you're like, okay, I want to lose. Like if you're trying to lose streak, then you're like, oh, I want to lose. But if they open as well, then we're both in a pickle. We're both in an economic pickle. So in that case, if you're not willing to like risk it, because it is a really big risk, that it's better to play 1 unit and win than reset your streak to 0 after a 4 loss. So that's open forwarding. This might develop a little bit more advanced, like a better way to avoid open forwarding while still trying to lose streak. But for now, this is the update. And just remember that open forwarding is no longer really a thing. If both players do it, both players are instantly in a really bad spot. So the next one, streaking. As I gave a little bit of a hint, the 2 streak is gone. So here are our new streak intervals. By the way, all of these infographics are from Mort Dog's patch rundown. So I'll leave a link to that in the description, or you can just check it out yourself. It'll show all the details in full. Here I just took out the most important bits. Now the streak intervals are a lot higher, or not a lot higher, but they are 1 higher all stage in order to hit your gold. So instead of 2 and 3 streaks getting you 1 gold, now it's 3 and 4 streaks getting you 1 gold, 5 streaks for giving you 2 gold, and 6 streaks for giving you 3 gold. So what does this mean? Well, now this means that breaking your streak is even worse than it was before, and it is crucial to maintain your streak whether you are win streaking or whether you are lose streaking. The other thing is, now that it is a streak of 6 for 3 gold, that means the maximum streak you could get going into neutrals on stage 2, like going into Krugs, will be the 2 gold streak, because it'll be 5. So you will only be getting this, start getting this like 3 gold streak on 3-1 if you continue your streak either winning or losing. So what does this mean? Gold generation is now more reliable on interest and winning your rounds, because winning your rounds, if you remember, you get +1 gold. So now this means that This is just another way to reliably get gold rather than just relying on your streak. Because of the streak changes, this basically means everyone will be getting less gold. Whether you are win streaking, whether you are lose streaking, because you will not be getting that first like iteration early and then just the iterations are just delayed by one, everyone is getting less gold, which means the tempo of the lobby is a lot slower. The gold tempo is slower, which means that just the pace of the game will be slower, and instead of you're really rushing to 4-1, even 4-2 for your fast 8s, now there's going to be less of that, and even a 4-5, so leveling to 8 on stage 4 round 5 is acceptable, just because it's a lot harder to accumulate gold now. So these are the streak changes. The next big change is to the trait Heartsteel. So everyone knows Heartsteel, you have your 4 turns and then you cash out. Now there is more of a risk factor. So if you look at this text here, basically there's something called raise the stakes. After your 4 turns, you'll be given an option, so on the right, to either cash out, which is your regular Heartsteel. So if we just like discard everything else, cash out is your regular Heartsteel, right? The new portion that they added is raise the stakes. So if you hit raise the stakes, instantly your box turns gold, and now you gain double the hearts if you lose a combat. But because it's more risky, if you win a combat accidentally, you'll then lose 50% of your current total hearts. So this is high risk, high reward. If you continue to raise the stakes, your box turns gold, you gain double the hearts, and then if you're able to cash it out, you get a really good bonus. However, if you accidentally win, then you lose 50% of your current total hearts. So super risky. If you are raising the stakes, you have to make sure to scout around, continue to lose streak. And if you actually manage to lose 8 times in a row, so that's what this bullet point here is, if you get 2 in Heartsteel, it is perfect interval for a 3-5. So right after the carousel on stage 3, you get a double cash out after raising the stakes. You get these additional 80 bonus hearts, and you're in a really good spot to start trying to win out from there and start win streaking on stage 4. So this is the main change to Heartsteel, essentially just the raise the stakes mechanic, and also the base heart rates after 5 Heartsteel had been lowered. So 5 Heartsteel and 7 Heartsteel are nerfed a little bit, but 3 Heartsteel is the same. So what does this mean? Now it means that 2-1 Heartsteel is much more valuable than just throwing in Heartsteel on stage 3 or just throwing in Heartsteel like on stage 4. Of course, it's still good because you can always just cash out. Remember, cash out, just after 4 rounds, cash out is the current Heartsteel, right? Raise the stakes is a new thing, but if you don't click on that, then Heartsteel is the exact same. It's just a little bit worse at 5 and 7 if you just do your cash out after 4 rounds. But 2-1 is a lot more valuable, and also because if in the previous slides, as I was talking about less open forwarders, now there's a lower chance of accidentally winning a combat. You will most likely be the weakest in the stage or weakest in the game at the time if you're playing the Heartsteel units, and you could also just sack your board to try to increase your chances of losing and continue your Heartsteel path. So this is the main thing for Heartsteel. In the early game, look for any of these units. So your Cassantes, Aphelios, Yone, and Sets. Try to get that Heartsteel in on 2-1 if possible, and you should be on track for a 3-5 double cash out, plus the 80 bonus hearts and the raise the stakes. You'll be getting a lot of loot, and you'll be good to go from there. So that's Heartsteel. The next point that we're going to be moving on to is the headliner change. So all of these kind of tie together, like the open forwarding into your streaking, Heartsteel kind of, but as you might have noticed, in this current patch, so before this upcoming patch is going on, the tempo is extremely fast. It's all gold based early into a level to 8 on 4-1. Look for your headliners, and if you hit, then everyone else is going to have an extremely hard time of finding that same headliner. So now they've changed it, so it's a lot easier to hit your 4 and 5 cost headliners. It's actually also even easier to hit your 2 and 3 costs if you're a contested reroll. So let me explain. The rule to prevent headliners have been adjusted. So before, it used to be if out of the pool, right? So here are bag size changes. Let's just focus on like 4 costs because this is the main thing. So 10, right? If out of the pool there are over 5, so 5 plus, so basically just 6 onwards to 10, or I guess just 6 onwards, then the headliner will no longer show up in the game. So this means that if 6 were out of the pool, you can no longer find that headliner for 4 costs. Now they have changed that restriction, so it's only if you, so yourself, own more than 4 copies of a unit, then you can't find that headliner. So now they have changed it from a number of copies held by everyone to just number of copies held by yourself. And then it's also 4 copies, right? 4 copies of champion. So as long as you don't have more than 4 copies of a champion for 4 costs, you will be able to find that headliner as long as there's still 3 left in the pool. So if there's at least like 7 in the pool left and you don't have 4 copies of that champion, you will still be able to find that headliner. So this greatly increases your chances of hitting your 4 cost headliner. 5 costs is a little bit of the same. Now it's changed to 3 copies. However, 5 cost headliners on level 9 is super rare. And then on level 10, well, if you are at a spot for level 10, especially in this economy, then you should be able to hit your headliner no problem. So that's first bullet point. 4 and 5 cost headliners much easier to hit now. Same with the 2 to 3 costs, because now there's no restrictions for 1, 2, and 3 cost headliners. So that means that, like, let's say even 3 costs, right? So 17. There are 17 copies of each 3 cost units. If there's at least if there's 14 out of the pool and there's still 3 left, you are still able to hit that headliner as long. Actually, there is no as long. That's it. If there's 3 left in the pool, you are able to hit it. So if you're sitting on 6 out of 9 and there's 3 left in the pool, you can still hit that headliner. So 1, 2, and 3 costs rerolls is a lot easier now. Number of copies is based off of yourself instead of everybody else. And what does this mean in total? In the grand scheme of things, it's a lot less punishing to greed now. We're no longer in this like crazy rat race to make as much gold as you can early. Of course, gold is still good. Still try to make as much gold as you can early, but it's no longer this rat race into your stage 4-1, send it to 8, and try to hit that Caitlyn or Ezreal chosen before everybody else. Trying to hit that, even Ahri chosen and like Sentinels is fine. So now we can very comfortably like level to 8 on 4-2 if we're fast 8ing, and then roll from there, or even 4-5 if we're playing one of the more uncontested comps, or if the comp you're playing is just not contested in your lobby, so like a Pendakill or like Disco TF. So now it's a lot easier to be greed a little bit more, and as I mentioned, all of these changes in total are slowing down the tempo of the game. It's not speeding up, and right now it's very fast. After Wednesday, it will be a lot slower. So that is the change to the headliners. Just ignore the stage damage. The bag sizes was mostly just what I want to talk about. And that's all for this slide. So the next one I want to talk about, so we're nearing the end now of all of our changes, is item changes. So as you may have noticed in this, in the current meta, rods and cloaks are our items that we want to finish off and kill. So what that means is we're never really excited to see a rod and cloak. It's more so when we have a rod and cloak, we're looking specifically for a different component to finish off this rod or to finish off this cloak, right? So if we got a rod, then we're looking for like a chain to finish off the rod and at least make crown guard a suitable item. This is because previously the rod and cloak items were just not good. Now they have been buffed all across the board. So almost every item, including a rod or including a cloak, has been buffed. So if we just go through it really quick, like Adaptive Helm has been buffed, both the front row and back row, so more armor magic resist and more AP. Archangel has been buffed, more AP. Bloodthirster now grants you also 15 AP. So this means that Bloodthirster is not exclusively just a physical damage item anymore, and you are able to put it on ability power or magic damage melee units. So for example, like early game, Evelyn will be able to make use of Bloodthirster a lot more, or like late game, a Kayn is okay to hold the Bloodthirster now that it grants AP. Red buff has been nerfed. Dragon Claw, so cloak plus cloak, has more HP. Even Shroud has been buffed the resistances. Gargoyle I actually think will be very good now. Not any item that grants you multiple stats that apply with each other, or like that are multiplicative with each other, is really good. So if you think about it like a Steadfast Heart, the reason why Steadfast is so good is because it gives you HP and damage reduction. Well, now Gargoyle Stoneplate will give you resistances and this 100 HP. So I think Gargoyle is actually a suitable slam now, early game. Gunblade has been buffed. Ionic Spark has been really buffed, granting an extra 200 HP is insane. And then Jewel Gauntlet is buffed as well. So if you notice the common trend, it is your Rod and your Cloak items that are being buffed this patch. So they went from the worst components to now potentially the best. Sorry, this was blue buff, not red buff. I misread. However, red buff also got nerfed, so now your red buff and your blue buff both got nerfed, which means units like Ezreal take a direct hit and are just not as good because their items are worse. The very last thing I want to mention is the true damage spat blink bonus, which was your units deal 10% bonus true damage. Or actually, I think it's just 10% bonus damage. Regardless, this bonus has been removed, so we're no longer looking for spatulas for true damage to put on our Caitlyn or our Ezreal. It does not work well anymore, and seeing that spatula on 2-1 does not instantly mean you're going for the true damage line anymore. So yeah, these are the major item changes, and I think that actually wraps up and leads us to our final summary. So I'll just reiterate everything. The overall tempo of games will be a lot slower. Less gold for everyone means people will be leveling slower. They'll be hitting slower, like hitting their units slower, like either if they're re-rolling, they'll be leveling later and rolling later. So the overall tempo of games are a lot slower. You can now comfortably level 8 roll down on either 4-2 or 4-5, which is fine. It's no longer just your 4-1 and try to make it as early as possible. You're able to take your time a little bit more now because of the tempo being slower. Cloak and Rod are now very valuable components. There are so many items that you can make with these two components that will benefit you. There's a lot more options to win streak early, not only from the Rod and Cloak actually helping you just like slam an item, like actual good item. There are a lot of buffs to the other one cost chosens that I did not include just because there's way too many. Feel free to check out the More Talk patch notes for this, but there's a lot more options to win streak early. And there's an incentive to win streak early over lose streak because you get that +1 from your winnings, and lose streaking and then running into that perhaps open fort situation between two people is an extremely risky scenario to go through. And then last but not least, Econ is now much more reliant or even just reliable on interest, sorry, not interested, on interest and round-based wins, as I mentioned in the point above. And then also Econ augments are a lot stronger now, and Heartsteel especially on 2-1. So these are your major changes upcoming in the patch on Wednesday, January 10th. Of course, this is just a preview going into it. After the patch has been out, so next week, I'll be doing a lesson on Thursday, so we'll have a bit of time to check out the patch live, and then I'll be making a follow-up lesson on Thursday talking about what is good, what was correct, and anything that has changed. So now I'm open for any questions.